Okay, so we started tayammum. Let me ask you before we read. If you make tayammum for a wound, this is my question here. When you have a wound or you can't wash a part of your organ, why would you have to wipe on the cast or the bandage? Why would you have to wipe on the cast or the bandage? If you have a wound that you can't wash and then you make tayammum, why would you have to wipe on the bandage? 5, 4, 3. You're wiping over the part you can't wash. I need the answer to be a little more exact. Even if you just added one word here, will be good. 4. Or even just adjust the sentence a little bit. 3. 2. 1. So the answer I'm looking for is you're going to wipe over the cast or the bandage as a replacement for the healthy part of the organ that you can't wash. The answer you wrote here, you said you're wiping over the part you can't wash. So this answer doesn't clearly say you're wiping over the cast, but that's part of my question. Yani, yeah, I can let you get away with that because it's in my question. You said you're wiping over the part, and you're going to be wiping over the cast with the bandage that's over the part that you can't wash as a replacement over the part you can't wash. Yes, Yani, as a replacement for what? The healthy part. That's the word I was looking for mostly. You're wiping on the bandage or the cast as a replacement for the healthy part that you cannot wash. So, let me ask another question. What is the tayammum for? If you're wiping over the cast or the bandage to replace the healthy part that you cannot wash, then what is the tayammum for? Is it to replace wudu? No, not to replace the wudu. We're talking here about not the case of wudu or ghusl. Tayammum is for 3 things. Tayammum replaces 3 things. You can add that question there. You can answer it first if you want. What does tayammum replace? 5. So you can give me an answer for either of these questions. What does tayammum replace? And the other question is, if wiping over the cast is for replacing the healthy part that you can't wash, then what's the tayammum for? You said wudu and ghusl. That's 2 of 3. Tayammum replaces wudu and replaces ghusl and replaces one more thing, which is an organ that you can't wash or a part of an organ. Okay. So now we're not talking about replacing wudu or ghusl. What we are talking about now really means you're making wudu or ghusl. There's just some part of your body that you can't wash. It's not the whole wudu that you can't do or ghusl. Okay. So the third thing that tayammum replaces is the organ you can't wash. And what is the tayammum for? It's for the wound that you can't wash. What is the cast for? What is wiping on the cast for, or the bandage? For replacing the healthy part around the wound that you can't wash. What's the tayammum for? The tayammum is for replacing the actual wound that you can't wash. So, whether you have a bandage or not, you're going to make tayammum. Because you need to replace the wound, the wounded organ, or the wound itself that you can't wash. And if you have a bandage on there, then you're going to wipe over the bandage to replace the healthy part of the organ that is blocked by the bandage. Is there any question here? Yes, I'll repeat. So the fundamental thing here is the tayammum. You're going to make tayammum whether you have a bandage or not. The bandage doesn't depend on the tayammum. The tayammum doesn't depend on the bandage. The tayammum is to replace the wound that you're unable to wash. Not the healthy part around the wound. Because if you're able to wash the healthy part around the wound, you have to. Yani, yeah, put it that way. You have to wash the healthy part around the wound. Yeah, no problem. What's the tayammum for? The tayammum is not for the healthy part of the organ that you can't wash. The tayammum is for the sick part of the organ that you can't wash, which is the wound. So whether you have a bandage or you don't have a bandage, you're going to make a tayammum to replace the sick part that you can't wash. So our example last time was that you got a scrape on your foot. So there's a circle, a red circle on the top of your foot. You can't wash it now. Okay. So what are you going to do when it's time to make wudu? Wash your face with the intention of wudu. Wash your arms. Wipe your head. Now when you get to your feet, you can make tayammum first or wash your feet first. Why are you going to make tayammum? Because there's a part on your foot that you're not going to be able to wash, which is that red circle there. And everything else around that circle, you can wash it to complete your wudu. Then what's the tayammum for? The tayammum is a replacement for that piece of your foot, in our example, that you cannot wash. So eventually, inshallah, it will heal, and then you'll be able to wash that spot again, and you won't have to make tayammum anymore. That's clear up until here? Okay. Now, it's the wound that you can't wash fundamentally because it's damaged. So you're going to really just wash everything around there and just leave the wound alone. And make tayammum for that wound as a replacement for washing the wound. So then, because you have this wound, maybe you're going to put a bandage on there. Once you put the bandage on there, now the bandage is covering some of the healthy part. Because how it's going to stay on your foot? You need to cover some of the healthy part. Like the bandage itself is going to be wider than that circle. You're going to put it down there. Then maybe you have some tape. That's going to take up more healthy part, even more healthy part. So the bandage itself is going to be wider than the red circle. You're going to put that on top. So now it's covering some of the healthy part. Then maybe you're going to put some tape so it will stick to your foot. Now it's covering even more of the healthy part. Now you have a wound that you can't wash and some of the healthy part of the organ that you can't wash because it's blocked. So what do you do to replace the healthy part that you can't wash? Tell me, please. 5, 4.
You cut out.
Yes, I'll say it again. So you have a wound. You can't wash it. So you will wash around it. But maybe you need to cover it. So you put a bandage on there. This bandage is going to be wider than the wound itself. That means it's going to cover some of the healthy part. And then maybe you're going to put some tape on there just so it sticks to your foot. So that's even more of the healthy part that's covered. How's voice? Good voice, good voice. So you have a wound that you cannot wash. And you want to put a bandage on this wound. The bandage is going to be wider than the wound itself. So when you put that bandage on the wound, it's going to be covering some of the healthy part that you need to wash. But now you can't wash it because there's a bandage there. Not to mention, you might need to put some tape on there. The tape's going to take up even more of the healthy area. So you're going to make tayammum for the actual wound that you can't wash. Yani, you can't wash that wound not because there's a barrier there. Maybe this is why it's not easy for the people to understand it sometimes. You can't wash the wound. It's not because there's a barrier there, but because of the wound itself. Whether there's a barrier there or there's not a barrier there, you cannot wash the wound. So you make tayammum to replace the wound that you can't wash. But if you do put a barrier there, which is the cast or the bandage or the like, even if it's a band-aid, if you cannot remove it, then you're going to have to wipe on the bandage because the bandage is taking up some of the healthy part. So wiping on the bandage is to replace the healthy part that you can't wash because there's something in the way. Making tayammum is to replace the wound itself. The wound that you can't wash, not because there's a barrier there, but because it's a wound. Then when you put a bandage on there, if you can't take the bandage off, you're going to wipe on the bandage because the bandage is taking up some of the healthy part that you have to wash around the wound. Had the bandage not been there. Had the bandage not been there, you would have washed the healthy part around the wound. Now the bandage blocks you from that, so there's not only there's a wounded spot you can't wash, there's also a healthy spot you can't wash. So the wound is replaced by the tayammum, and the healthy part that's blocked by the bandage is replaced by wiping the bandage. That's clear? You got it, Malik?
I understand the tayammum part for clarity. You're wet wiping the bandage, right?
Yes, wet wiping the bandage, not soil.
No, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. So someone said, got it, finally. Yes, go ahead. You want to confirm. But Yani, that's normal for this mas'ala. It took me a lot of studying this case for it to soak in all the way. It's not finished even. But up till here is clear, inshallah. There still is there remains the details about, or there remain the details about when you're gonna have to make up the prayer even though you prayed. Will you have to make up the prayer or not? There are scenarios like If you cannot take the cast off and it covers more than what's needed, you're going to have to make up the prayers. Pray now and then make them up later, because it covers more than what's needed and you can't take it off. Or if you put the bandage on not while you are purified. So if you do need to put on a bandage or a cast or something, make wudu first. This will decrease your chances of having to make up your prayer. When you're not going to have to make up your prayer, if you put the bandage on while you had purification and the bandage only covers what's needed, not more, then you're going to make tayammum for the wound and wipe over the bandage for covering some of the healthy part, and you won't have to make up those prayers later. As long as that bandage doesn't cover more than what's needed. You said, so when the wound is covered by a Band-Aid, you wet wipe the place, which is the Band-Aid. And wet wipe the Band-Aid. That's clear. And perform
Yes.
tayammum for the part you can't wash, for the wound that you can't wash. So there's two things you can't wash here. There's a wound that you can't wash. That doesn't depend on the barrier. And then there's some healthy part of the organ that's blocked by the barrier. Now you can't wash that too. Two things you can't wash, so you need two replacements. One thing replaces one thing, and one thing replaces the other thing. You said, and the Band-Aid that is covering the healthy part, right? I'm not sure how your sentence is continuing. You said, so when the wound is covered by a Band-Aid, you wet wipe the place, the Band-Aid. Is that what you said? And perform tayammum for the part you can't wash? Yes. And the Band-Aid that is covering the healthy part, you're going to wipe the Band-Aid, wet wipe the Band-Aid. That's cut the whole Band-Aid, not just the healthy part that's being blocked by the Band-Aid, the whole thing. Yes. Let me give you another example. The example I just gave you is that the bandage is on the foot and there's some tape on there, so it's taking up some of the healthy part. What if the bandage demanded of you to wrap it all the way around your foot? So the wound is on the top of your foot, and the bandage you are using, in order for it to stay on, you have to wrap it around the bottom of your foot too, just to keep it on. Then this is not more than what's needed. That's needed. That's not more than what's needed. It's needed, just so it stays on. So what are you going to do? Wipe on the entire bandage, even the part that's under your foot. You wipe the entire bandage to replace the healthy part that the bandage is covering. Okay, it's clear. Alhamdulillah. Malik, it's clear for you? Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and confirm again, please. You can take the mic if you want to. Okay. In the example that I just gave, they will have to wet wipe the whole bandage. Yes. You always have to wipe the whole bandage. So if there's no bandage, you're just going to wash around the wound and leave the wound alone. Leave the wound alone. So then you might say, so that's it? That wound's just going to be left without any purification? The answer is, well, there's going to be a tayammum. That's going to replace washing the wounded spot. So that's the Shafi'i school. Okay, it's clear. Alhamdulillah. So now, the author says, section. He wants to talk about the integrals of tayammum. The obligations, meaning the integrals of tayammum, are 5. The first is transferring the soil. Transferring the soil uh, usually is going to be by striking the soily surface. Then the dust of this soil clings to your palms. Then you're going to bring your palms to your face. So that's the meaning of transferring the soil. So since transferring is an integral itself, that means if the dusty soil were blowing in the wind, it's not enough for you just to stick your face out and let the dust come upon your face, because then there is no transfer of the soil on your part. Then you missed an integral. So what should you do in this case of the dusty soil blowing in the wind? Stick your hands out. Let your hands, the palms of your hands, catch all that dusty soil instead of letting it blow right on your face directly. Let it blow upon your hands and then transfer it to your face. Bring your hands with the dust to your face with an intention. Then you will be fulfilling the integral. The second is the intention of permitting prayer. Yes, as opposed to the intention of lifting religious impurity. If you intended by your tayammum to lift the religious impurity, then your tayammum is not valid because it does not lift the religious impurity. That's what happens when you make some mistakes in your intention like that. Sometimes the mistake doesn't affect your intention, sometimes it does. Like, what if you wanted to follow the Imam? And the Imam was Shaykh Anwar. And in your heart you said, now I intend to follow Brother Mu'een. Then your prayer is not valid. Because you, even though you did intend to follow an Imam, your intention missed the Imam you're following. So it's not valid. Like that, if a person intended by his tayammum to lift the religious impurity, it won't be valid because it doesn't go there. So he has to intend to permit prayer. So then you might say, are you saying that the one who makes tayammum, who prays with tayammum, is praying while impure? The answer is yes. That's why tayammum is what? Taharatul darura, an emergency purification. So your intention is istibahatul salah, permitting prayer. Licensing the prayer. Yani making it lawful for you to engage in. If the prayer were obligatory, the author says he intends permitting obligatory prayer. Then with that intention, he can pray a sunnah prayer too. But if he intended to permit a sunnah prayer, he can't pray an obligatory prayer. If the prayer were obligatory, he intends permitting obligatory prayer. It is obligatory to associate the intention with putting the hand upon the soil and to maintain it until wiping some of the face. Yeah, so your intention starts from your palms being placed in the soil and must remain until you start wiping your face. So from before you lift your hand from the dusty surface until after you wipe some of your face, your intention must last that long. The third is, yes, I'll repeat. The intention of tayammum lasts for some moments. How many moments? as many moments as needed to, yani, as many moments as are included in your hand being on a dusty surface, and then lifting your hands from that dusty surface, dusty soil surface, and bringing your hands to your face and then wiping some of your face. Your intention has to last that long for tayammum in the Shafi'i school.
Wait, I caught the first part. You said the intention lasts for. Can you repeat it?
Mm-hmm. The intention, what does it say here? It is obligatory to associate the intention with putting the hand upon the soil and to maintain the intention until wiping some of the face. So that means the intention has to last that long. Maybe the way I'm saying it makes it sound like it takes 5 minutes. It's only going to take you maybe a second and a half. 2 seconds. Is it clear now?
The intention lasts for a second and the wiping.
What does it say here? It says with putting the hand upon the soil. So it's not technically a condition. It's not technically a condition to make the intention when you strike. Like as soon as your hand hits the surface, say Bismillah. That's not a condition. Maybe your hands were already there in the soil, in the dusty soil. So make your intention and then lift your hand from that surface and bring your hand to your face and wipe some of your face. That's as long as the intention has to last.
That's clear.
The third is wiping the face itself, like in wudu, but it's not sunnah to go inside of the beard. And one needs to be mindful to get the space between his nostrils. The flesh between his nostrils. He has nostrils, a right nostril and a left nostril, and there's skin in between on the outside, not the inside. I'm talking about the septum inside. Just because it's likely for the hand to miss that spot while you're wiping with soil, you'll have dust on your face, and then the middle of your nose would be without any dust on it. So don't forget that part. And the minimum, by the way, is 2 strikes. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, "At-tayammumu darbatan." Tayammum is 2 strikes. Now, if I want to be more technical, then really the tayammum is 2 transfers, the minimum. The minimum of tayammum is 2 transfers of soil. 2 transfers, yes. Yani, originally you're going to strike the surface. So you take your 2 hands and strike. That's 1. Now you got the dusty soil on your palms. You make the intention, then lift your hands and bring your hands to your face and wipe your face. Don't miss that spot there on your nose. That's 1 transfer. Then strike again. Lift your hands and wipe your arms. Like all of what you do in wudu, wipe all of that. That's the tayammum. The minimum is 2 transfers. More than 2 is still valid. And it's sunnah to knock your hands together before you wipe to remove extra soil. The 4th is wiping both hands with the elbows, like wudu, and removing the ring for this integral. Sunnah to remove the ring from the beginning, but obligatory to remove the ring at this spot because unlike water, soil does not flow and therefore will not get under the ring like water can by its natural flow. So you must remove the ring so that you leave that part exposed so that you can wipe it. And the 5th is keeping the sequence like this. So as you can see, tayammum is more akin to wudu than to ghusl, like we said. And you're going to use the same procedure for replacing a wudu or a ghusl. Wallahu a'lam. Any questions?